Hi, my name is Nacho, welcome back to the channel. And the Barbieheimer meme has definitely made an impact on social media, and now with both films finally out, it's time to review them, together in one video as they are meant to be. Since the moment they were announced, both films brought major hype, with news like the making of Barbie causing a shortage of pink paint around the world, the IMAX reel for Oppenheimer being 11 miles long and weighing 600 pounds, Christopher Nolan using minimum CGI and detonating an actual bomb for the movie's iconic shot. Both had a lot going for them, and then they announced that the release date was gonna fall on the same day. And then the memes began. Much like Doom crossing back in the day, Barbieheimer started flooding Twitter, and the funniest thing people pointed out is that while Barbie was going to extreme lengths to promote the film, Oppenheimer marketing was basically Cillian Murphy progressively looking more like shit as the weeks went by. But the marketing was genius, and the memes people made gave both films a huge boost. Having Margot Robbie going around in various pink outfits was brilliant. Thank God Amy Schumer turned the role down. Imagine having her fat feet during that scene. That was a bullet dodged by everyone. I couldn't find the exact figures, but it would have been so cool if the marketing team for Oppenheimer realized that they were being carried by Barbie and just save the money and chill. Just let them do the hard work. The trailers were also pretty straightforward about what either movie was about, or at least that's what the public thought, but I'll get to that in a minute. Let's start with the one I saw first, Oppenheimer. It's easy to say that this movie is a spectacle. It's a really long movie which, if it wasn't for some of the iconic scenes and transitions between objective and subjective perspectives that clearly gave the movie a unique touch, it would have felt a lot longer. The practical sets and the making of the Trinity Project are fantastic, but what really takes the cake is the casting. The cast of this movie is insane. Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Emily Blunt, Matt Damon, and Florence Pugh were obviously the highlight of it, and they absolutely killed it with their performances, but sometimes it felt like some really good actors had relatively small roles and kinda went under the radar. For example, up until this titular scene right near the end, I thought Rami Malek was going to be wasted talent. Pleasantly surprising to see Josh Hartnett back in the big screen. Last time I saw that guy was probably in Pearl Harbor, and he was excellent in it as well as in this one. Some knowledge of history helps a lot, of course, to follow what happens and who the characters are without losing track of it, but I'll say that despite the constant changes between trial scenes and the making of the atomic bombs, the story is lit up rather well and the cinematography is extremely catchy to make up for the long runtime. Since this is basically a biopic, there's little room for creative changes, but the added visual to some situations like the explosion flashes Oppenheimer sees after making the bombs really gave you this terrible sense of chilling anxiety. I also love that they didn't rely heavily on plain narration, but instead some of the events that needed to be described came in the shape of the testimonies read by some of the characters during the RJO hearings. Cillian's performance is rumored to be Oscar-worthy, and I fully agree with that. You could see the progression of RJO and the changes in his personality after the bomb was made and after they were used. Oppenheimer was clearly one of the most important men in the history of mankind, and I feel like Cillian did a fantastic job in his depiction of him. Emily Blunt is such a boss in some parts of this movie and made such an impact on me when it was her time at the hearing. The ending with Einstein is also incredible. It's basically a huge open question that was made back then, and that 70 to 80 years later, knowing how the world changed since the events of the bombs makes you wanna just take a pause and think. Because these men were extremely smart, and even they questioned themselves on what they had done. I can't even begin to comprehend what could have been going through their minds at the time. I would give this movie a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for one thing: the audio. Christopher Nolan is famous for having terrible audio in his movies, especially if you watch them in cinemas. This movie has spectacular moments like the bench scene and the bomb detonation during the Trinity testing. Those are amazing audiovisually, but there's also a lot of dialogue in heavy European accents that are almost inaudible. Almost every scene with Einstein or Niels Bohr was a struggle to listen to because the ambience noise was getting in the way of the dialogue. And this being a movie that relies on you knowing who said what to whom to know what happens next, I feel like it's a big point against it. Despite that little detail, I really liked it. I mean, there's tits in it, so I'm definitely watching it again once it hits the streaming services and I can activate the subtitles. But now, let's talk about Barbie. I'll say Barbie is an okay movie, because it definitely has some positives. Performances are great, mainly from Margot and Ryan. There's some funny jokes here and there. The set designs are amazing. Margot looks stunning in every scene, and Ryan Gosling is an amazing Ken. Motherfucker can dance, he can sing, has some cool jokes, despite the script constantly making fun of him and having Barbie treat him like shit in almost every scene they share together. I'm not an expert on Barbie lore, but aren't Barbie and Ken supposed to be the perfect couple? Because if that's the case, the perfect couple in the eyes of a feminist is fucking toxic. Before I go into my critique of this movie, let me just preface by saying that I know that I'm not the target audience for this film. Oh no, this is definitely a woman's movie. This is a woman-made film after all, which is made abundantly clear by just the initial 5 minutes of it, where we get this humongous shovel of feminism thrown directly at our open mouths in the form of narration. I usually don't watch other creators' reviews before doing my videos, so my ideas of the movie are primarily my own. But because feminism is not my forte, I consulted with the drunken wisdom of the critical drinker and Star Wars girl, who pointed out that if this would have been made to be a family comedy or a rom-com, with no intricate socio-political messaging embedded in it, you know, like the good old Arnold Schwarzenegger family comedies that are considered classics for decades now, this movie would have still been a hit, probably even bigger, because you would have gone and seen it with your whole family. Fathers would have had to take their daughters and her friends to the cinema multiple times because the girls want to go see the Barbie movie, and as a parent, you'd be obliged to. Any parents watching this video, how many times did you watch Frozen because your kids loved it so much? Now, after you've learned what Barbie is about, how many times would you let your kids watch this film? Because this movie both sheds on the idea of motherhood while simultaneously going through the effort of giving a mother and her daughter a bonding arc. Also, why is Michael Cera in this?
Oh look, a construction site. We need that good feminine energy. Ladies, yoo-hoo!
You should probably go check a drill site. Oh wait, I get it. You can't get a more feminine cultural icon than Barbie, though it was expected from a female director that a certain level of feminism would be involved. But at the same time, this movie goes back and forth with some of its ideas on feminism so many times that it's ended up being very confusing. This movie did not reach the first 30 minutes and I was already full of questions, like why do the Kens fight and are jealous of each other constantly? Aren't they basically the same people, like the Barbies? And how come they don't feel like that? For a movie that in its opening narration says that the Barbies achieve equality in Barbieland, why are things so different between Kens and Barbies? I'm definitely giving this movie way too much thought. But another thing that made my mind twist some gears while watching this film is the constant reference to the fact that stereotypical Barbie continues to deform into a normal woman because the person playing with her is going through some hard times, which is something impossible to happen in this perfect feminine world of the Barbies. So I'm constantly presented with the paradox that the Barbie world is the dream woman's world where everything's perfect, all day, every day, including Wednesday, but the women in the real world affect them in a way that the perfect feminine Barbies can't handle. At the same time, women in the real world, particularly feminists, see stereotypical Barbie as a negative representation of womanhood, given her idolized natural figure and beauty, friendly and uplifting attitude, constant positivity and resilience to stress or bad feelings, which some would consider the ideal woman to the masculine gaze, and is unachievable by 99.99% of women. Oh, this is He-Man, by the way. The movie does out itself on this halfway through by having a teenage girl called Barbie a fascist.
Say what now?
This is a feminist movie, right? Again, this movie was geniusly advertised from the beginning, because literally no one saw coming that the extreme feminist message that came with it would be so blatant. I mean, these are dolls, for Christ's sake. There is a 2-minute monologue by America Ferrera about all the things women are put through and expected of in the real world, majorly by other women. I mean, why go to therapy when you can make a multi-million-dollar movie and have a paid actress say how you feel about life?
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Greta must have had it tough in school, man. The movie ends with her teaching the Barbies to be disingenuous with the Kens and manipulate them in order to break free of the patriarchy and regain control of Barbieland and turn them against each other? But the Kens literally try to help the Barbies every time they need and lift their spirits whenever they feel insecure while being bros to each other? That's a bad thing? It's almost ironic that people found Ken to be actually kinda cool. Fun game, drink every time someone says patriarchy or women in this film.
That is a dangerous game, friendo.
Barbieheimer is indeed one of my favorite memes out there, despite the man-hating nature of the Barbie movie. In a way, it's still great. Financially, it's the biggest box office performance weekend in history. Barbie officially broke records as the highest grossing female-directed opening weekend. Both movies are tracked to be a hit. I'm sure awards are going to be flying for both of them. Rotten Tomatoes scores are through the roof, and it created the biggest pour of people into cinemas in a time of great uncertainty in Hollywood. Oppenheimer is almost 3 hours in length and did not feel long in the slightest. Barbie is 112 minutes long, and I know that because I was counting each one of them until the movie ended. But again, I'm clearly not the target audience for Barbie because I am not a middle-aged mom and my hair is not a radiant blue. It's obviously not fair to compare these movies and say that one is better than the other because they are vastly different in cinematography, style, and the message they convey. The first one is a story about one of the most influential men in the history of mankind, and the other one is about a Barbie girl living in a Barbie world where life is plastic and it's fantastic until it's not. One's a biopic, the other one's a picture of a world without men. One talks about some of the greatest minds of its time and the ideas that they had that changed the world. The other one hopes you don't think much while you watch it. One talks about some of the most horrendous acts done by men. The other one, I guess they're kind of similar in that regard. You can't take away that Barbieheimer was indeed a phenomenon. People dressing in pink suits to go see both movies was really cool, and it's probably gonna be a long time until we see something like that happen again. But if you watched this far into the video, leave us a like, let me know in the comments down below which is your favorite Christopher Nolan movie. Dark Knight Rises. And as always, I've been Nacho. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.